morning. It's day 7 of our Lent Readings for 2022, looking at the books of the New Testament. And today we're going to start the last of the Gospels, the Gospel of John, which is very different from the other Gospels. We've said already that Matthew, Mark and Luke have a lot of passages in common, the Synoptic Gospels, but John is not like that. If they are giving a photo of the life of Jesus, John is giving an artistic impression and approach it from a very different point of view. Probably written later, probably written with some sense of some awareness of the other Gospels, written as, to use the words of Clement of Alexandria, one of the early church fathers, written to complement the other existing Gospels. And now it's thought to be written by John, the disciple of Jesus. Now it doesn't mention John at all in the text, but it does mention someone who's called the disciple whom Jesus loved. And everyone's thought that referred to John, just the way he appears in the text. He appears at the Last Supper. He runs with Peter on that day of resurrection to the empty tomb. And so everyone from the beginning has said this is John the disciple. And the text would support that. There's eyewitness details, the number of fish caught, the number of jars in Cana. There's details about Jewish customs to do with the Sabbath, to do with Samaritans. There's distances known, like how far Bethany is from Jerusalem, and all these things point to being John the disciple. And so John wrote this, and he says at the beginning, he wrote this that we might believe. Now I'm going to read that well-known passage from the start of John's Gospel, which will be very familiar to you. So John 1, starting at verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not out of natural descent, nor of human decision, or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh, and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Now the John mentioned in that Gospel is not John the disciple, that's John the Baptist, just to clarify that. And what we have here is the Word. The word to translate is the word logos. Now, logos is a Greek word. It means, in regard to God, more than God's spoken word. It means God's wisdom and God's action. And it says the Word was in the beginning. It parallels Genesis with in the beginning. And what John wants to say is that the Word was eternal before creation. The Word is all pre-existent. But the Word is also in relationship. The Word was with God. So the pre-existent Word in relationship with God. And then the important phrase, and the Word was God. Now some find that controversial. For example, the Jehovah's Witnesses, who in their New World Translation add an article, the letter A. So it says, and the Word was a God. And they say the text implies that's there because there is no article in the text. It literally says, and the Word was God. Now, this is John, a Christian from a Jewish background, writing, and John would have been very, very careful what he said about God. He wouldn't leave anything to be implied. So when John wrote, "and the Word was God," he meant, "and the Word was God." No article included. And then he says in verse 14, "the Word became flesh." And now we see the Word, the pre-existent Word, who is with God, who was God, is Jesus. And the Word becomes flesh, becomes human, becomes God in our shape and size, and lives among us. That idea of taking on flesh would be seen as a crude idea, but it just shows the sacrifice that Jesus was willing to make for us, to step down into his own creation for us. And then it says he dwelt among us. That word dwelt is sometimes translated he lived among us, or even he pitched his tent among us, because that word literally is tabernacled. He tabernacled among us. The tabernacle was the tent which God gave the design to Moses on Mount Sinai, and they built the tent, and that travelled round with Israel in the wilderness, and wherever they stopped they set it up, and God's presence resided there among his people. Later, when David had established the kingdom, they built the temple, and there God's presence resided among the people. And now God's presence resides among the people in Jesus. In the past, if you wanted to meet God, you went to the tabernacle or the temple. If you wanted to be worship God, you went to the tabernacle or the temple. If you wanted to be put right with God, you went to the tabernacle or the temple. But now, if you want to see God, you go to Jesus. If you want to worship God, you go to Jesus. If you want to be put right with God, you go to the one who is fully God and fully human. You go to Jesus. Until next time, have a blessed day.